Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization with Jared Feather, also for Renaissance Periodization. The Smith squat. Finally, for many of your questions, we have a Smith squat tutorial, mistakes, common fixes, and corrections. First, what is the purpose of the Smith squat? Here's the deal. It's not just squatting on a Smith machine. The purpose is specifically to target the quads a little bit more than they would be relatively to other muscles than the free squat. And we're gonna do this in a way that the free squat can't allow because of the limitations of gravity. You can think of the muscle targeting in the Smith squat as some hybrid between hack squats and free squats. Let's get into the details. See you in a sec. Number one mistake is kind of twofold. The extreme is to think this is a completely different exercise than the squat. It's not, it's very related. So we want you to start from your regular squat stance and then modify from there. But the other side of the mistake is not modifying enough and just doing a squat with the bar in a Smith instead of not. What you want to do is target the quads a little bit more, which means you're going to be placing your feet a little bit further ahead than normal. But how much is determined by essentially three very related things. One, too much forward is when your lower back starts to round. Not forward enough is when your heels are coming up off the ground, and or both not forward enough and too much forward is when you no longer feel that the stimulus is being directed to your quads. They're not getting a great stretch and you don't have the ability to generate lots of force. So, Jared, show us some two extremes. So start a little too far back. So if he's too far back, he's gonna try to do the squat, and what's gonna happen is he's gonna kind of do it, his heels are gonna come up, and his back is leaning over, his back is rounded at this point, no bueno. He's gonna try to fix it by putting his feet like 3 feet forward, which is all fun and well in hypothesis, but then his back rounds again at the bottom, and he's kind of gonna be feeling that, you know, Jared, that feet sliding forward feeling where you're like, if I push hard enough, I'm gonna ice skate my way into certain death. What you want is feet roughly 3 to 6 inches in front of your normal stance to stay more upright than your normal stance. Your heels are all the way down on the ground. There's no lower back rounding. And notice his quads get a huge stretch at the bottom. He really feels it. That's what we want for foot position. Next mistake is having your feet too narrow or too wide. Now here's the thing. It just comes down to this. Are your quads getting hit a ton? If your quads are getting hit a ton and other muscle groups are not being involved too much and not limiting your Smith squat, you're doing a great job. So there's really no such thing as too wide until and unless you're like, all right, this is really an adductor exercise. You'll notice Jared's built a little bit uniquely. He prefers a wider stance squat more often. So for him, this is his Smith machine squat stance. For me, mine is narrower because I'm just generally built better and feel more in my quads when I do a narrow stance, but there's no right answer between the two. However, there is a possibility of going too narrow. Jared, do a little ballet squat there. How do you know when it's too narrow? It's when you lose the ability to produce tons of force through instability. Like if you're not feeling stable coming up, who the hell knows? You're not even gonna recruit half your muscle fibers because your body's like, I'm not trying to kill myself here. If you're feeling unstable or if your joints hurt, feel something weird, or you can't hit full depth and proper positioning, it's too narrow. So it's not like the narrower you can go, the better. You just want to pick a stance that really hits your quads super well, which usually means a little bit narrower than your normal free squat stance. And because your feet are a little bit forward and the machine supports you, that's probably going to be totally fine. But once you start from just a bit narrower than your free squat, don't feel like you have to move in super narrow. There's nothing to benefit there as long as your quads are getting hit. So start a little bit narrower than your regular squat, experiment with just a bit narrower than that, just a bit wider than that. Get a situation where you feel your quads a ton, you feel the rest of your body not so much, there's no joint pain, everything feels great, you can produce a ton of force. That's your stance right there. 3-for-1 special on this one. Holy crap, this is getting crazy. Just range of motion problems in general. 3 problems here. Problem number 1 is your range of motion is too limited. So, Jared, get on there and let's move some pig iron, damn it. So, yeah, okay, that's a cool half squat. That's also a cool half squat. Sounds great. Not a good idea. We want the quads to get imposed tension under massive stretch. That's the most growth. So we want to go deep, which usually means you're going to touch your butt all the way down to your calves pretty much. Full range of motion is best. Nice, good stance, staying upright, super deep, and coming all the way back up. Now, is there such a thing, point 2, as too much range of motion? There is. If your lower back starts to round visibly, also experiences discomfort, you should try to play with your foot position to fix it. But a lot of times, if your foot position's not the problem, you definitely don't want this to happen, and you might have to cut your depth. Jared, show us what an almost full depth, but keeping the back safe thing looks like for folks that aren't super flexible. So it might look like this, and he starts kind of rounding, and he comes back up. Now, can you show us, stop there at that point? Stop all the way at that part. Now, go all the way down. So there's more there. It's just not available to us without compromising our technique. You should try to go lower and lower and lower every time, just by a millimeter here and there. But if your lower back is compromised, go no lower than that. So that's sort of part 2. Part 3, super related, is no consistent range of motion. Once you find your range of motion, and it's okay to get a little bit deeper every time, what you don't want to do is have some reps you lock out, some you don't, some you go deep, some you don't. You want every rep to look almost the same, set to set to set. So Jared can sometimes do, okay, that was kind of halfway down. And then, oh, that was all the way down. Yeah, but it doesn't come up all the way. What the hell is going on? You want to do every rep the same. Jared, show us what that looks like. Start at the top. You don't need to powerfully lock out or anything, but generally start all the way up. You're going to squat to your preferred depth that's safe, as low as you can, with a good lower back tightness. And then you're going to repeat. Every rep should look the same. Good enough. When Jared and I train, we put our training videos on Instagram. One of the best compliments we've ever received is, I can't tell which one is the first rep and which one's the 8th. I thought you were replaying a single on loop. Hell yeah, that's what you want your training to look like. Next mistake is another twofer. Lack of eccentric control on the squat, and it almost always comes with a destruction of technique on the way up. A destruction of technique that's specific to just trying to do the rep instead of focusing on staying upright and letting the quads get hit. A lot of times that results in kind of a concentric good morning situation. So, Jared, show us a lack of control on the way down. We want control, 1 to 3 second full eccentric control. We're never dive bombing. So Jared's gonna do one of those. Okay, and that's nice. It's cool to do a fast squat in Olympic weightlifting. We're doing hypertrophy training, so Jared, show us nice controlled. That doesn't mean you take 5 hours to go down. It can mean up to 4 seconds on the eccentric is totally fine, but at least 1 second to make sure we're under control, milking out the contraction. Now, on the way up sometimes, with the herky-jerky stuff, what people will do is they'll even do a good eccentric contraction, but they'll let their ego get the best of them on their way up, and they'll shoot their butt out and do whatever it takes to come up. And sometimes, with the way the Smith squat is arranged, using your hips more can actually let you lift more weight. Here's the problem. We're not here to lift the most weight. That's what the regular squat is for. Here, we're here to target the quads. So Jared, can you show us, when you get tempted to do good morning, what you should be doing instead? So you want to come up, you want the rep, you're tempted to just heave it. What you should do instead, watch his chest. He's going to reassert his chest and stand straight up. You're going to immediately feel your quads more. Nope, and up it goes. Fix that technique. Are you going to get more reps? No, you'll get fewer reps, but every single rep will be quality. That's what we want. Every rep counted on its own. Every rep as great as we possibly can, so it checks the boxes of what we want out of it. You are never on any exercise to just do reps. Not when you're training for hypertrophy. You're there. Reps come as an emergent property of the fact that every rep is quality. If you do a quality rep, should you do another rep? Sure. If the last rep wasn't quality, what the hell are we even doing? Focus on quality. Don't get too caught up in the numbers, and make sure that every single rep you're doing is super good, so that at the end of a set, it's all super good reps. Your chance of injury is super low. Your chance of getting a huge stimulus is super high. You finally get gigantic, and for the first time in your life, you can smile in public. Second to last mistake / piece of confusion. To pause or not to pause, that is the question. I know I'm quoting Shakespeare directly, but let's talk about squatting. So here's the deal. Our pause is a good idea. They're an option. But if you're going to do them right. So you don't have to do them, you can if you want, okay? How can you do pauses wrong? Well, I thought there was just one way to mess it up. Jared just reminded me there's actually two. One way is to do a good controlled pause, but to lose your tightness at the bottom and have your lower back round. So it's a pause that does that. Good God, don't do that. A pause is not an opportunity for you to rest. It is an opportunity for you to put a huge amount of force in the quads and keep them generating force while everything stays tight. So do a proper pause, Jared. He's just gonna pause, same, but everything stays upright, and then he comes up. Super. Then there's the other way to pause, where, as Jared reminded me, you pause, and then JK, you do some kind of weird double pump explosion after the pause, because there's no way you're gonna get caught generating linear force. You gotta be an athlete, and it's gotta be a stretch shortening cycle for some damn reason. Jared, show us how athletes do this. LOL. Boom. Yeah, I took a pause, but I also took a little jump there for no damn reason. Folks, this is not helping you grow muscle at all. As a matter of fact, it's just a way to interestingly, marginally increase the chance of injury and have tracking go out the window, because who knows what you're doing at that point. If you're gonna take a pause, totally cool. I love pausing on my squats. Make sure it's strict. Make sure you stay erect. I don't mean like that, damn it. And make sure you're not doing any kind of weird stuff after the pause to cancel out all of its benefits. Loading ranges. Is there such a thing as too heavy and too light in this exercise? Yeah, there's definitely such a thing as too light. So sets of 20 to 30 reps on something that is continuously pressing down on your spine, not the greatest idea. Not because it's dangerous or anything, but because the systemic load will mean your cardiovascular system or even your nervous system is gonna give up way more than the local muscles. It's just gonna give up first. So usually we like to do these in the 5 to 20 rep big range. So 5 to 10 rep range and the 10 to 20 rep range. Now, which one of those two wins out? It comes down to stimulus to fatigue ratio. There are times in your program where you totally want to do Smith squats in the 5 to 10 rep range, but usually that amount of free motion, that amount of central drive is best reserved for free squats and not Smith machine squats. However, I have done Smith machine squats very productively in the 5 to 10 rep range. It's totally fine. You gotta kind of watch your knee positioning. Your knees might start to hurt, but other than that, if it works for you, awesome. If you're getting a good pump, getting good tension, do it up. The 10 to 15 rep range is, oh, marron, fucking beautiful. Like if you're an Italian mobster, that's the only range you train. 10 to 15 is super great place to start for these. It gives you the best combination of relatively high forces and super high quality with some metabolites as well. 15 to 20, if you're Trevor Fulbright, you can do shit like that because you're not mortal. The rest of us, that really is pushing that boundary of you're gasping for air and so on and so forth. In a rest pause fashion, my rep fashion, you might be able to pull off 15 to 20. Careful though to make sure your quads are still the limiting factor. So our best recommendation sets a 10 to 15 and then sort of throw your tentacles out to the other ranges to see if they work for you. Folks, that's all we have on Smith machine squats. Remember, you're not a real warrior until you do Smith machine squats while yelling in the gym. You'll have no friends. See you next time. All right, folks. So